Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is going to be the first in a series that is a tarot tutorial looking at, in the first part of the series, the Major Arcana cards. So that goes from the Fool, which is 0, and what I'm covering today, through the Judgment card, which is number 21, and talking about some of the themes of each card. And so that you can get like a feel for it if you've always wanted to kind of know more about the cards. I will tell you the names of my decks if I remember them. So this one is the Rider-Waite deck, but I think it's called the Radiant Rider-Waite, and it's got like this kind of a sheen on it. It's not like the typical one, but it has the same illustrations. It kind of is shimmery when you hold it up. And this deck is the Light Seers Tarot deck. This is the Morgan Greer deck, and this is kind of a smaller size of this. It comes in a tin. This is the Wild Unknown Tarot deck. And this is, I think it's called the Crystal Tarot. And the reason I have like all these different tarot cards of the same Fool card is because I just wanted to give you different artists' interpretations of what this card represents. So I'm going to probably, well, let's talk about, before I go into some of the key words, these three cards all have the similar theme of the traveler with the knapsack, as we can see. One of them is a woman. I think she's got a knapsack. It looks like she has an amethyst, because this card is actually connected to Uranus, the ruler of Aquarius. So maybe that's, and I think that's what the birthstone of Aquarius. But all three, well, you can't really tell in the Morgan Greer deck, but like by a cliff, because there's that theme of like the person who might have their head in the clouds so much that they're kind of, you know, they could kind of fall off because they're not watching where they're going. And before I continue, I want to give a shout out to 2 sites that I consulted to compile my list. And I am going to put them below, because if you really want to learn tarot, these are great starting points. For the internet, there's a site called trulyteachmetarot.com, and the one that's a book is called Tarot Plain and Simple by Anthony Lewis. So I'll put that, I'll put the links below. Hopefully I'll remember. But anyway, let's start. I have my notebook here. So I guess Karl Jung had an idea of what this card represents, which is the concept of the Holy Fool. And he called it the Divine Child, actually. And I just checked, because I know that Karl Jung was connected to astrology, but he might not have been with the tarot. I have not yet found that connection. But in any case, the whole thing was his archetype of the potential through the child. And we can broaden that to be any kind of new beginning that we have. And that's what this card really emphasizes. After all, it is the first card of the deck, not numbered 1, numbered 0. And, you know, the reason for that is that the 0 point is pure potential. And that means that it hasn't been impacted by any other, it hasn't been affected by anything that's come before it. So it's a completely like a blank slate that's open to whatever it receives. It's, obviously if we talk about the divine child, and this is the Major Arcana is like the hero's journey through the self, how do we begin and how do we end? And it's about the journey into the unknown. Okay. And that's very important because the Fool is, and I put Holy Fool, I forgot they also use another term with the Fool. Just saying the Fool, there is that element of foolishness, and who would judge that situation as foolish? The world, because the world tries to impose things on people. This is one of the big images, like I said, is the knapsack, but it's a very small knapsack. And you see the knapsack is in the alignment with the sun. The sun represents our individual natures. And so it's us in an independent way. So if you get this card, and now of course it depends on where the card is drawn from. So if it's like in a past position, it could mean that you recently entered that stage. I'm not going to go too much into like interpreting the tarot from, the different positions and stuff like that. But I just want to talk about some of these key phrases. And of course, we see with these two different decks that they have the chick, like that baby that is kind of a newborn as well. So some of the things that this can represent is innocence, naivete. So kind of like, and by the way, childlike qualities. Sometimes we say that a child is naive because they believe certain things. They're very trusting, and adults are cynical sometimes, and we assume that they don't know that somebody is bad or that they shouldn't trust everybody. But the thing is that they're in the present moment and the eternal now moment. And when we decide that we are going to be suspicious of someone, we're not in the present moment. We're really trapped in the past because we're remembering when something bad happened to us when we trusted someone who betrayed us or what have you. But there's also simplicity associated with this. So in other words, the life is not complicated. And sometimes you may have a person who is middle-aged and they're going through this Fool period. It's like they're starting from scratch. And they may minimize or minimize their life. I can't remember that term, but become a minimalist, downsize. They embracing simplicity. It can be something where a person is attracted to an alternative lifestyle, because this card is connected to the planet Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius. So it's about somebody who's a nonconformist. So that can really be the case. If somebody has lived their life in a very conventional way and it really was not authentic for them, that they can go and do something completely different because that was what they truly wanted to do, but they didn't have the courage maybe when they were younger. And of course, a person could be young and this could be very important for them as well. I keep showing my my notebook. This can involve risk-taking and being unbiased. Risk-taking, it's because one of the main reasons I would say is because the person is not sure what's going to happen, because of the 0 point. It's like the unknown. And so kind of diving into the unknown. So I think I use the phrase new era in one's life. So that's when a person may, especially, I mean, obviously a new era of your life, it could be that you're, have a new job or something, and maybe it has different hours, or you're working in a different town, or you're relocating. But I'm talking about even something even more radically different. Yeah, if you move to a different country and you leave behind all of those things, that could be what it is too. This could be something that's making you excited, the adventurous spirit that you have. Because again, I mean, and this can be depending on what kind of situation you've been dealing with already. If you've been dealing with something that has been very confining, and maybe this feels like liberation in a sense. So I use the word unconventional. So you're not conforming to the norm or the standard in society. Eccentricity, that's a similar type of word, but it's, waving your freak flag, doing something. And you see, sometimes people do those things just to rebel because they are angry at life, but they're really not doing it authentically. It's not, that's not a given that if you behave in a certain way, wear certain clothing, that it's in alignment with what you're really about. But this would be something that would be uninhibited. I think I might have said that. So in other words, no longer trying to contain yourself in a way that kind of keeps you very, you could say rigid in your behaviors. And if you've tried to kind of like tame yourself in some way, this would go against that as well. This can be mystical people. Now, an interesting thing is the type of people. They mentioned homosexuality and bisexuality. And I think, this is just my guess of why they're mentioning that, is because that is in the minority, and something that, I use the term alternative lifestyle, but I meant beyond that. That's a term that they use for those sexual orientations. But in general, that is, now it is, way more mainstream and everything like that. But even within that, there is a community that is supportive of people, the LGBTQ community. And so it is still kind of like a side, there still is like this separation, in other words. So you could look at it from that point of view. And of course, there's still pushback in some cases. So it's really kind of putting themselves out there in a way that they haven't done before. So yeah, and this is some of the themes that could be present, is leaving the old life behind. So, kind of like what I'm saying, embracing the new, being surprised. So maybe life surprising you, instead of surprising other people with but that's probably going to happen too, with you surprising other people, you're going to be surprised as well. Stepping out in faith. This is a big one because, again, 0 point, unknown journey. when you step out into the unknown, you have no guarantees of what's going to happen. Living in the moment, spontaneity, embracing the inner child. Well, that's kind of like the divine child. That's a facet of Jung too. And then they have advice that is given connected to this card. One of them is freedom. And this is about what it means is not being saddled down with baggage. And that's the symbolism of that knapsack. Traveling lightly, similar theme. Living in the moment. Being original and authentic. Being careful of wanting something because it is new. So that's the novelty factor, wanting to just do something because it's different than what you have experienced in the past, but it's just kind of, it's almost frivolous. It's not really meaningful. In the reversed position, we're talking about fear-based behaviors, because we can look at the opposite of what somebody who is stepping out in faith, somebody who's afraid of making a move without any kind of guarantees of what's going to happen. Erratic. So, and I don't think they have this word here. I would say perverse. I'll talk about that word in a minute. I'm not talking about perverted. I'm talking about perverse. But you can be unpredictable and still be, in a pleasant way. And people who are erratic, you never know what they're going to do, but it's very chaotic. So that isn't necessarily a good quality to, act on, obviously. In terms of the word perverse, because I don't see that I put this here. One of the things about being like unconventional, for instance, or not being a nonconformist, is really embracing individuality. When somebody is perverse, it means that they're deliberately trying to be weird because maybe they're trying to get a reaction out of someone, and they're not really doing it from an authentic place. It's like kind of being a troll. Poor judgment, and that would come from, you have spontaneity, but then you also have the flip side, which is rashness, doing something without thinking. I put down here, won't step out on faith, but I already kind of covered that. Lack of vision. And vision means, when we're envisioning something, we're not seeing something that's currently in our reality. So a person who doesn't have like an adventurous spirit, they're going to just, there's going to be kind of a dull, and it's funny, I have that word dull for my next point, but like a dull mind, a dull concept of what life is all about. And so it says no fun, a dull life due to unwillingness to risk anything. Yeah. And that we know that happens. And, when people are fear-based, that was the first term that I brought up here, they are afraid to do anything that they haven't done before and they haven't seen certain results, because what if it doesn't work out? And that can lead to kind of a very narrow life. Irresponsible. I want to say foolish. A person that is very, again, with, you could say flaky, a person who is doing things chaotically, erratically, no rhyme or reason for them, and they're just kind of flailing around. They don't have, because it's the zero, the 0 point, there's there's no kind of like solidity there. So if you begin, this is true of anything. Sometimes people say, oh, I want to be on YouTube or something like that, but they don't have a vision. I've told people, before, I said, do you have something that you really want to convey? Do you have like something you want to, communicate to people? Do you have a vision for yourself? Sometimes people just want to do something because maybe they want other people to admire them, or they're just kind of like these vague desires, but they don't have, I'm not saying you have to have like a complete game plan, but at least some type of idea of what you want to do, a vision. Childish versus childlike. And that's an important distinction, because a lot of times people think that they're synonymous. Being childlike is being innocent. It's being free. It's living in the moment. Being childish is somebody who is emotionally immature. They're irresponsible. They think that they can do anything at any time and that they won't suffer consequences for it. They're not thinking about the bigger picture or the longer term. You can be spontaneous and still choose the actions that you take, and know that some things that in the long run, they're not worth it. It's not that a person who's spontaneous just does random things whenever the mood strikes them. And being able to discern the difference is going to be the difference between those two terms. Okay, well, I just wanted to give the first card reading, and I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a private tarot reading or astrological reading, the link is below. Thank you. Bye.